Student trustee Shaw? Here. Trustee Walker?
Here.
Trustee Gallegos?
Here.
Trustee Tata?
Here.
Vice President Slavadine? And President Lee.
Here. All right. Approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
There are no changes.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. Minutes, item 8A. Are there any changes or adjustments to the minutes? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve board meeting minutes of January 24th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I believe there is nothing to report out of closed session this.
Nothing to report.
Okay. All right. So item 10A, board report. We will start with our student trustees. Mr. O, would you like to kick us off with your report? If there's anything to report out.
This past week we had our winter ball. We also had a balls competition at Jefferson High School, which was the last one went pretty well. Moving forward, we have like a blood drive next week Friday and an upcoming meeting.
Ms. Shaw?
Good evening. We recently held a few events, one being our snowball dance at the end of January. It was a successful first winter formal in several years, with highlights such as free photo booth pictures, cotton candy, and popcorn for everyone who attended. Last Friday, we also held our winter team rally, which carried the theme of hip-hop versus R&B. It was wonderful to see us all come together for student performances, sports team recognitions, spirit games, and teacher lip-sync battles, which were a hit.
Who won?
Debatable. I say sophomores and seniors. But the past few weeks at our school have seen the redesignation of one of the campus restrooms as an all-gender restroom, which is a much-needed step toward cultivating a more inclusive school climate. Our annual Mission Fusion Dance production, which is a celebration of different cultures, will be having its shows this Thursday through Saturday evenings, and tickets are still available on their website. Our basketball and soccer teams are continuing to do very well in their games this season, while the spring sports are starting to get underway. We'll also be having our second Foods Day of the year next Friday, where classes and clubs will have the opportunity to fundraise by selling various food and drink items during lunch. Currently, students are working on course programming for their schedules next year during their advisory periods. I know we're welcoming some exciting new electives, and due to our 4x4 schedule, students are offered ample space to take them in addition to their core classes. And that is all for Jefferson. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Walker.
I don't have much to say. I recently was able to see the Oceana mock trial team compete against another team that could have been from our district, but they don't identify them. So it was just good to see students doing their best. I like people who do these performances and efforts to try to make themselves better. I enjoyed it a lot. That's all I got.
Great. Mr. DeHedros.
The only thing I'd like to report, yesterday at the student advisory meeting, we sat down with County Superintendent Nancy McGee and the County Supervisor Dave Pine with the Student Advisory Board. And we had a really interesting conversation about the recent shootings that have been going on in close to our neighborhoods, close to our families. And it was a really interesting take to hear what all the students had to say about how they felt about gun violence and guns in general, how they felt just about being safe at schools, malls, any places that they visit. As a father, it was hard to listen to some of you guys talk about those concerns and how worried you were about being in those places or even just being at school and having to think about that kind of stuff. It was pretty deep. You guys did mention that you guys do want to continue those conversations, so I do want to encourage that, if they do have a chance to do that. And if we have a way to let them do that, I think it's something that we should definitely consider somehow, some way. But, yeah, I didn't want to put a bad spin on that, but it was just that, I thought about that a lot last night after leaving that meeting. So, yeah, no, that's pretty much it.
So I also attended that meeting, and, when we had our guests there, they were really hoping for, it was the first group of students that they were talking to, because they were going to talk to students throughout the county. And I told them that, well, this is an honest and opinionated group, and you're going to get a lot of feedback here, and it did not disappoint. But like you said, it was hard to, as a mom also, it was hard to see the students talk about how all this violence affects them on a daily level. And it also made me think about, how I also just retreat from, I think that it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen around here, that happens somewhere else. And yet, when I was a mom at Jeff and even a mom at Westmore, I would get the email saying that we're in shelter in place, we'll give you more information. So stuff does happen, and we do need more conversations about it, because it doesn't go away. It was clear from what the students said last night. I was able to participate in there was professional development throughout the district on January 25th, and I was able to participate in a session of courageous conversation. And we've been talking about it here for a long time. We've had feedback. I've always heard how the teachers and staff or administrators just really connect with it. And I wanted to experience it. And it was an eye-opener. I mean, really, it was an eye-opener. And you have to be comfortable with discomfort. And I found myself learning so much about people in the district, but people in general. And about our upbringing, where we think we are, how race affects us. There was this exercise where the moderator asked us to put on our screen, how does race affect you? What's the percentage that you believe race impacts you? And just put the percentage in front of your name on your screen. And there was like 75 of us, and there were 2 of us who put 100%. And there was a third person who was at 100%, but later on I saw it changed it to 10. So and then I got to go into a breakout room with with 2 folks who I admire very much, who were 0 and 10%. And it was a great discussion we had, really great discussion. And the 2 hours went by really fast, but it was really great. I'm glad we're doing this. Last week, I was able to support the Oceana PTO at their lasagna night and drop by and see the students and buy desserts to support their prom committee. I really miss doing that, and I think I'm going to attend the Westmore PTA meeting online tomorrow night. So just to connect, and because I was a PTA mom forever and ever, and now that doesn't go away either. And then I will be attending Mission Fusion this Friday. Looking forward to it.
I'm glad you talked about courageous conversations. I'm sorry that I missed it because the day job got in the way that particular day. Meetings that I couldn't break away from, unfortunately. But, it made me think about the work that we've been doing on equity and on race, that we continue to do as a district, that I remember that Trustee Saludin and I did when we first worked in the CSB Equity Network, now over 4 years ago. And the challenge that it was for us, the fact that the realization that we can't do this work if we're each unwilling to do the work ourselves. It starts with me, starts with each and every one of us. If we can't change our own individual biases and minds, or we have to recognize that we have biases, but we have to change our mindsets and be willing to be uncomfortable and it's only through that, only through doing the hard work and the painful work of recognizing where I've come from, where each of us have come from, that we can actually grow and change and do the work that we need to do to be able to fully support the 4,000 students of this district. And it's, having read through the SIPSA for Jefferson, which we'll see the presentation tonight, and just to think about the student population that we serve and that they deserve the best out of each of us, and the best out of each of us requires that each of us do that hard, individual, introspective work. I recognize the privilege that I grew up with and the predominantly white cultural lens with which I was raised, because I went to a school that was predominantly white and went to a church that was predominantly white and had most of my friends were white. And then to have a wife who's white, but then realizing with her telling me early on, you need to figure out a way to come to grips with your own ethnicity, because one day we will have kids who are biracial and they need to understand who they are. And that was a wake-up call 30 years ago for me. But I'm grateful that she did that. And so each of us needs to do that type of work. And I know we will continue to do so. We will never get there, but we will be better today than we were yesterday and better tomorrow than we were today. And that's my hope for us as a district.
I cannot follow that, Andy. That was very well said. So I guess I'm going to build on that. So, I'm honored to be the superintendent in this school district because of trustees like yourself and because of our staff and employees who are committed to this work. One of the things that we learn in Courageous Conversation, one of the tenets is, accept and expect non-closure. And we're not going to fix everything in a minute. And it's ongoing work, it's ongoing conversation. Experiencing discomfort, as Rosie said, it's not comfortable. And, the kids last night at Student Advisory, I am always proud of you. I was exceptionally proud of our students last night with Superintendent McGee and Supervisor Pine. They gushed about our students. We, of course, know how awesome our students are. But they were so thoughtful and open and honest, and it was a really good conversation about really painful topics about gun violence. I was proud that I think really at all the schools, the kids said that there were adults, counselors and adults that they could go to. And a few said, it was a real change from a few years ago. So the investment that we as a district have put into supporting our staff and students with mental health has made a difference. But so I'm going to sort of connect a few things. The work we're doing with Courageous Conversation, I think, is really important. I'm glad that many were able to come to the 25th. There are many opportunities to do more work with Courageous Conversations actually online, but not when it's an all-district training, and we're going to be doing that in an ongoing fashion. The administrators tomorrow and Thursday are continuing our work. This is vice principals on up with Courtney Caldwell, who's our the person that we work with most directly with Courageous Conversation. So we have done lots of work, we continue to do lots of work, and it's an ongoing thing. I wanted to mention as well, kind of connected, I wrote in last Friday's message to the district acknowledging the violence perpetrated against Tyree Nichols. And I just feel like it's really important that we as adults in this community challenge ourselves to talk about hard topics with our students. And I just wanted to be really clear that that I know people are struggling, and that we need to remain steadfast in our commitment to disrupt racism in our communities. So I wanted to just acknowledge that. It feels like every Friday there's something tragic to write about. I want to acknowledge that. It's hard. And along with the difficulties, I'm very proud of all of us, in this room and not in this room in our district, that are working every day for our students and for each other. Other than that, I'm looking forward to Mission Fusion. To wrap it up on a positive note, looking forward, I will also be there on Friday night. It's one of my favorite things that I get to attend in the district, and so I'm very excited about that. That's it for me.
Ms. Chasey with the AFT 1481 report.
Good evening. I'm going to take it to a different place. This weekend, Lisa Raskin and I attended the CFT conference that was labeled Unleash Your Jedi, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, which, goes along with the work that we've been doing here. She actually said that it was one of the best conferences she's ever gone to, and she's gone to a lot of different conferences, so I was really proud of that. I was sad that it was only the two of us. One of the positive things, aside from that and the topics that we learned about or continued our work on, is that we connected with our elementary school district's local AFT 3267. And many years ago, we used to have, once a year a party together. And I think we're going to try to get together again for the two staffs to get together. They do work and we do work, and some of it overlaps, but it's very important for us to keep together, keep going in the same direction and help each other. And that's what unions do, and we support each other. So that's some of the important work. So I just wanted to say some of the strands that we worked on in the conference. Strand 1 was racial and social justice, courageous conversations from a different spin. What parents and educators need to know about LGBTQ plus youth, Asian American workers rising, Climate Equity 101. Strand 2 was political workshops, lobbying, running for office, what does it take, and organizing workshops, how to organize for contracts, engaging members one-on-one, some of the legal responsibilities of site representatives. But again, one of the main things that we went to were the racial and social justice workshops, and they were really good. Member to member, talking about what we do in our school districts across California, and so it was really good work.
And do we have a COVID-19 update tonight?
Yeah, so I'll be reporting. So just as we get ready for President's Week, we will do what we've done for all of our mid-year holidays and make sure that the students and the staff get COVID tests with instructions to take them prior to the return and then on the third day after their return.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to consent. Is there a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Item 13, do we have any public comment this evening?
No, we do not.
Fantastic. Then we'll move on to item 14A1, Jefferson High School SIPSA updates. Principal Harrigan.
Uh-oh, your access has expired.
Well, that was possible to expire.
Welcome, John.
Hi.
Okay, all right. You're good.
Good evening, Board President Lee, members of the board, and Superintendent Presta. It's my privilege to be here to talk about Jefferson High School tonight. Jefferson is an awesome place. And I'm just going to jump right in because as I practiced this, I realized I had way too much stuff on my slides. So I'm going to be kind of cruising through this pretty quickly. So we'll start with highlights. We have a number of great things happening, but I think our schedule is really kind of at the center of a lot of it. We have a 4x4 block schedule, which means that kids take 4 classes at a time, and they take a whole year's worth of courses in a semester. And so it allows students to do retakes. It allows them to, retake courses, to increase our A through G eligibility. There's so many options and possibilities along with electives that it just provides a wealth of opportunities for kids to continue to get better academically. We also have advisory, which meets 2 days a week. It's our second year doing advisory. In advisory, we're able to provide social emotional learning, college and career information and guidance, and just create a space that a kid will have for 4 years where they can call home and really develop a relationship with that teacher. We also have flex time 2 times a week. And so we, I think, are the originator of flex time in JUHSD. I'll just put that out there. And so
No competition.
No, I'm really sorry. I am kind of a competitive person. And so flex time allows students an opportunity to receive tutoring, receive support, do a retake, take tests, whatever it might be. They're able to select where they want to go. Teachers are also able to select that they want a student to come and see them. And so it just provides an opportunity for students to get support. So what else do we do really well, or what else are we really proud of this year? I think our school culture, our work on school culture and climate. We've done Unity Days, a lot of Unity Days, Camp Lead. We also have really been kind of working on intentionally talking about MTSS and introducing it. And one of the ways that we did that was through a student support plan, where we talked about what are some different behaviors that teachers might see in a classroom. And
MTSS. What is
multi-tiered.
MTSS?
MTSS is multi-tiered systems of support. And so it's looking at things from a tiered perspective. Like you have things that support kids globally, and then you go from like a global level of support, like most students fall within the global level, and then you get into a little bit smaller band of students that needs a little bit of extra support, a little bit of extra guidance, and then you get into like a tier 3, which is like a lot of support. And so we have all of those at Jefferson, and we have had them, but we haven't necessarily had them called or framed in that language of MTSS. And so we've done a student support plan, which teachers actually really like. It just gave them some guidance on some actions that they can do to support kids in class. And then are in our second year of Link Crew at school. And Link Crew is a fantastic program that welcomes incoming 9th graders. It also dovetails nicely into our advisory classes in that freshmen go in they go into freshman advisories and deliver lessons at least one day a week. It's awesome. And the goal is to help support freshmen as they transition. So academically, we have a lot of highlights as well. Our A through G rate has increased this last year. And so, but I'll show you, it's not equitable. We do have some gaps in our A through G rate. As you can see, like this is the school-wide number, so 49%. Our Latinx subgroup has not met that. So our Latino students are at 36% of our students are A through G eligible. And so we know that there's a gap and that we need to continue to work on that. So went through and disaggregated some more. Again, for socioeconomically disadvantaged students, we see the same gap. School-wide, it's 46%, but for our Latinx students, it's 35%. And so we see that. And then our students learning English, again, school-wide, it's 32%. For our students, Latinx students, it's 24%. So, knowing that, yes, we had experienced significant growth from 2021 to 21-22, but it's not where it needs to be. And we're below district average, we're below state average for the same demographics. So looking at the same students, we are below where we would like to be. But I will say, it's been brought to my attention recently that we used to be at 0 for our students learning English. And so we've seen that dramatic growth and we'll continue to see it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into this. It would be foolish for us not to acknowledge that we have 0 students with special needs that have achieved A through G eligibility in the last 2 years at school. And so that's an area of growth for us. So while it is a highlight, it is also an area that we know that we have some growing to do. So how are we going to, well, I shouldn't start. I don't want to start into that yet. So other highlights, we're introducing blue sheets, which we borrowed from another school. And we kind of Jeffified them with some help from Ms. Rubin and others. And so blue sheets are a way for us to provide language support and learning support for all students at school. And it really is looking at kind of a course from a global perspective and how do we, what skills do we want students to leave the course knowing and being able to do, and then developing unit plans based on that and providing the language support and through constructing meaning and other strategies. And so we're really excited about that. We're also really excited about changes to our SLE model for next year that we're rolling out. And we hope that those changes will impact student climate, culture, and also student achievement for students learning English. And the change in particular is having less sheltered instructional spaces, so having less EL classes and having students be out in CP classes more regularly, the students that have the skill level to be able to do that and to be able to open up the curriculum more and also open up the opportunities for students at school. Also this year we started calibrated walkthroughs for students learning English classes, our EL classes. We did calibrated walkthroughs. And the goal of that is to see what we're seeing. Like, let's go and see what is happening in classrooms and then be able to design release days and other support for teachers that are teaching students learning English. So lastly, family community engagement is something that we're really proud of. Our PTSA has had three meetings this year. The first one was a barbecue. The second one was a sugar skull decorating night, which was super fun. And then the last one was a garage band night that we actually held in the old auto shop garage. So it was kind of cool. It was a little loud, a little live, but it was great. So we've had, this year we've seen an increase in the number of parents who are members of PTSA. We're up to about, I think, 80 which we're really excited about. And they're folks who may not have ever joined before, but have, come by and experienced things. We're also really proud of the partnership with Skyline College and the Neighborhood Center. So the Skyline College Neighborhood Center it's a really cool kind of wraparound service that we're partnering with them. So one night a week, anybody taking an adult education course through JUHSD, or ultimately a Skyline course offered at Jefferson, is able to get a free meal one night a week. There's tutoring, and then we're hoping that we can start to do boxes of food or a grocery bag for folks who are taking a course. And then ultimately doing childcare. And so we're excited because it is people in our community who are able to benefit from this, and it's encouraging folks to continue to improve their skills and advance. So those are some of our highlights. Although we do have a lot of needs at school. One of them, obviously, if you've looked at our numbers, is our CASP scores. And they're not great, particularly our math. We know that. There's 19% of our students, according to testing data, that are proficient or advanced in mathematics. And that we don't believe is reflective of our student skill or the teaching and learning that's happening in class, but it is what the data shows us. So we're making some changes to the way in which we test this year, making sure that we can the things that we can control, the structural, the environmental factors, that we're doing that. And also, talking to students about why. Why is it important? How does it impact them? How does it impact everyone around us? So in addition to a lot of the other educational things that we'll talk about, I wanted to call that out as a concern, and we're aware of it. And it bothers us because we are kind of competitive. I'm competitive, at least. So we'll continue to work on school culture and climate. That continues to be something that students indicate as a need, and also staff indicate is a need. And so we'll continue to offer Unity Days and continue with that work next year, along with retreats for seniors and other things to help kind of build the class bonding and school community. We know that relationships between teachers and students are essential for any learning to happen in a classroom and for there to be a positive, healthy school environment. So that continues to be a point of emphasis for us. We also know that we have need for student support, whether that's for students learning English or it's for student wellness. And so we've talked a lot about how to support students. We have a lot of students who are dealing with a lot of really serious things in their lives. And how do we support them with that? So, we've talked about some other ways to address that going forward for next school year. So, but those are some of our identified needs. Clearly not all of them, but some. So we have a total of 5 goals in our SIPSA. And they align with our WASC action plan. So our SIPSA and the WASC action plan are pretty much together on this. So our first goal is to close the achievement gap and increase student achievement for all students. And that also aligns with our LCAP and our student learning outcomes and all of those things. So how are we going to do that? Well, we'll continue to use the 4x4. We're working on blue sheets and the development of that planning guide for teachers and staff. That's going to take a lot of work, a lot of time and a lot of work. And so it's really a concerted thing. It seems very simple on the surface when you look at the plan itself and the document, but then when you start to actually unpack it and realize every piece that goes into it, there's a lot, and it's going to take a long time and a lot of resources for us to be able to pull that off. But we believe that it'll have a really powerful impact on student learning. After school tutoring, starting that in person. We also have something cool, peer tutors, that we've started this year, and that's students helping students. And so if you think about it like a TA, except their job isn't to help the teacher, their job is to help another student in the class or students in the class. And so it's pretty cool. We're just getting it started, but it's, it has a lot of potential because students will often take help from other students before they'll take it from a teacher. interestingly.
A quick question. So I see that for the peer tutors, there's a 30% FTE. So who is that?
At this time, it's one of our counselors.
Okay.
As an addition to their normal duties.
Okay, to oversee the peer tutors. Nice.
Help coach them and provide support and assign them to different places and, yeah, yeah. So there's a few other pieces on here that I think are more self-explanatory. So then, when we go to SIPSA Goal 2, so Jefferson community will increase school connectedness by improving student engagement, parent involvement, and school climate. We'll continue to work with Link Crew and expand the Link Crew program. We're currently looking for 2 new advisors. We snatched up 2 of the best people, 2 of the best people we have, and made them vice principals. Which brings me back to one of the challenges, right? I didn't even address it. We have a whole new admin team at Jeff this year. They're phenomenal. They're all fantastic. The 3 vice principals are great, but we're all new. They would have loved
As
to
is
be
the
here
principal.
tonight, but they are supervising different things. So one's actually taking a class, one's at soccer, one's at basketball. So they couldn't be here. But we'll continue to support Link Crew transition program, increase, kind of continue to do our family fun nights and find other ways to engage community and parents, and that's really important to us. Continue to do the advisory program. In talking to students and developing the SIPSA, they really want to do more field trips to universities and be able to get out and see things. And so, being able to support that work. I see Ms. Shaw nodding her head. Yeah, that'd be great. And then the creation of a wellness center. So on campus, like a proper space that's more than a desk in a hallway, and that, really can provide some support for students as they're working through their challenges. So the third goal for SIPSA is supporting our students learning English, making sure that they have a plan and that they're connected to school. And so to do that, we have created this year newcomer groups. So mentor groups, they meet, I think it's every few weeks they get together, and it is a support group. That's been great, good feedback so far on that. We'll continue to support our social worker, whose responsibility is students learning English and foster youth and homeless students. So that's their primary job. And we, will continue to do our students learning English monitoring team that meets biweekly to support students and programs and kind of do some reflection on how to effectively support students. And then we'll continue to do our calibrated walkthroughs. We also, this year, have a dedicated SLE counselor. So we have one counselor who our students learning English are assigned to that one individual. And so that person then becomes a point of contact for teachers and students and parents. So our fourth goal for SIPSA is increase student achievement for students with disabilities. And so we are really focused next year on implementing more co-teaching and working on inclusion. It's really hard to increase the number of students who are A through G eligible if we aren't having students in classes that qualify for A through G eligibility and are taught by a highly qualified teacher in that subject area. So that's a really important piece of this plan for next year. So SIPSA Goal 5 is increase student achievement for students that are economically disadvantaged, homeless, and foster youth. And so there's not a lot here. We understand that. A lot of the work that we're doing in the previous goals will directly impact this student population as well. And so we'll continue to do all of the things that we're doing in other places to support them. Okay, so budgeted expenditures. We do have money at Jeff, and part of it is Title I, and part of it are supplemental, LCFF supplemental funds. So in black are the items that we pay for out of Title I funds. So our title funds are all spent on FTE. So the 2.5 FTE to support the block schedule, 0.17 for an instructional coach to help a lot of our new teachers and teachers wanting some additional support, and then our social worker. For, to support the other things that I've talked a little bit about tonight, so blue sheet development, we're anticipating that that'll be a pretty expensive venture as we do release days and substitutes and all of that. Classroom engagement materials, so as we look at what a 21st century classroom looks like and functions like, how do we help to do that? How do we get students collaborating and talking and interacting with one another? And then after-school tutoring, link crew, bonding, and then the wellness room, looking at spending a good chunk of money on the wellness room and getting furniture and supplies for that. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about Jefferson. It's a phenomenal school. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be a part of the staff at Jeff. It's a really cool place with really great students and staff. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrigan, for your presentation. Any questions, comments from the board, including student trustees? Yes, this is your chance to question your principal.
Nice, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Had peer tutoring starting last year, but I like it.
Can you explain blue sheet development a little bit more?
Yeah, so I can actually show you, can I?
Unlike
It'll link-
Westmore,
I
they
think you have it
weren't
linked,
allowed
don't
to give us extra slides.
Yeah, I stayed under my slides. So technically, I think I can go.
Sorry.
Can I go back?
Look at it.
Okay, so blue sheets
at it.
are, so it's this is a unit plan that would be developed as part of a blue sheet. So it goes into, we ask, what are the essential questions for that unit? And then what's the goal for the unit? How long do we think it'll take? We can link some different things. We're continuing, this is a living document, so we're continuing to add things. We just are gonna add some pieces for our grading for equity and including embedding some of those spaces in here, if people wanna do that. But, we're looking at the goal, and then we're looking at the standards that are being addressed during this unit. And then how is the student work gonna be assessed? And this is the really cool part to me, is that there's language and learning targets attached to this unit. So if you're thinking about like a day-to-day lesson, hey, if we have a new teacher coming in, or we have a veteran teacher who's gonna start teaching this course, this is already done. And they can walk in and go, okay, I have some confidence, I know what it is where my kids are trying to go. Because so much of teaching is about knowing where you want your kids to be at the end, so that everything you do during that day and that lesson is designed to support that. So the questions you're asking, the activities you're having them do are all designed to do that. So, but often teachers get busy and maybe their objective or their learning target isn't as well developed as it could be. And so what we're doing is saying, hey, really spend some time thinking about that, and then let's link the activities to it. So how will it be addressed? Here's some slides. There's a rubric to kind of look at it. And then to help support our students learning English, we have our general learning skills. So what do we actually want kids to be able to, this is what we want kids to be able to say. And then what are the key terms? So what do we think kids are gonna need some support with as we introduce this concept or this skill? And really, it's looking at units and instruction as skills and not necessarily like content, like stuff. It's like, you can have a kid remember 1855, this happened, but really, is that what we want them to leave being able to do, or is there a skill around the analyzing X, Y, or Z, or understanding or thinking critically, and being able to talk about something? So then what are the activities? So this one is actually for Brazilian dance unit, which is cool. I know, having a unit on Brazilian dance is kind of cool anyway. But then here's one for argument and rhetoric. And so they're still working on it, but they've linked, their ELD standards to it. And so this explodes into a whole nother document. That's why you can go down a rabbit hole with these, and it's pretty awesome. But the whole goal is yeah, I didn't realize that I was actually part of this. I had a kid come up to me the other day and go, Mr. Harrigan, are you really trying to ban cell phones at school? Are you really trying to block them? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're talking about this thing, huh? He totally made that up. So anyway, but you know, it is a living document, so I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, thank you.
And it's designed to be given to students.
Yeah, that was the next question, is how
Yep.
much of this do they really
Yeah.
get a hold of? Yeah.
It's designed to be given to students. And so at the beginning of this, there will be, it's the course map where we actually talk about the essential skills that we want them to have. And then they're outlining these units. So, and however many units they take to reach those
Yeah.
skills.
And it's
Could be
not a
8,
secret.
Or it's not a secret.
It's not a
Yeah.
secret. It's
Kids
like,
know
this
where
is
they
what
want to
we
go.
want- Yeah.
That's what we're going to be doing, yeah.
Yep, this is what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
It's more than just a syllabus, because that's what you normally just get.
Much,
And
much more
some
than a syllabus.
syllabi are more extensive than others.
Is
But
it
this
open, is it open to them for feedback on if they have any
I would hope.
ideas?
I would hope so. Yeah, I would hope that there's that relationship rapport with students that they could say, hey, you didn't really hit that today. Like, well, what are we doing? Like, you bird walked all day.
Well, just
Like,
'cause thinking-
I thought we were getting here.
Just thinking back to when you were talking about math scores, math as a subject can be pretty dry. We were talking numbers and
Yeah.
formulas and stuff like that. Other subjects can be a little more entertaining. Science, chemistry, English language arts, those
Some
kind
people
of
think
things.
math is entertaining.
I love math,
Trustee Gallegos.
but numbers aren't entertaining to everybody. So it's hard to, you kind
Yeah.
of want to make those things fun somehow, you know,
Yeah.
to make them,
Yeah.
to make them easier to learn.
Well,
Use
and
people like former math teacher Supervisor Walker.
There you go. Thinks math is fun.
some of it is actually looking at what are we asking them to do on a given day,
Right.
and what is our lesson going to look like, and how are we engaging students? And so we have a rubric developed that we're continuing to refine, but that's one of the questions, the guiding questions. Okay, are the activities engaging? Are the activities going to, you know, they didn't have any activities yet, but are the activities engaging? And are they engaging to all? And are we, what we have at Jeff is a lot of teachers who have done a lot of PD, and they haven't necessarily had a ton of time to implement that and integrate that into all of the work that they're doing in the classroom. So we're trying to provide an opportunity for them to spend the time and dive deeply into this and put it down on paper so that they have it. And then they can ultimately, like, what ends up happening when you're prepared as a teacher is you're more present for your kids in class because you're more relaxed. Your content is dialed in. You're like, I'm good. Kids are engaged, and you're more present for them. And so you're more attuned to what they need, social emotional, whatever it might be, if they need more support, instead of scrambling to try to, you've already done a lot of the thinking through and a lot of the formative assessment work.
I ask you a question? You linked, can you go back to your highlight slide where you on your presentation have done a little extra diving on the 34 to 49%, and you have it hyperlinked there. And as we are all on the document here, it isn't yet hyperlinked. So I just want to say for the general good, we will link the newest version that has that hyperlink for you.
Right.
I saw some people scribbling down percentages, but we'll hyperlink that.
Then also, there's a link to student support plan, the matrix, and that shows the MTSS pyramid.
Thank you. So we'll just make sure, yeah, all those
It would
hyperlinks.
also be good to just identify for those who don't know what A through G stands for, because we're all well-versed on it. but
Perfect, yes.
We should make sure it's for UC, CSU eligibility requirements, among other things. Any other comments, questions? Yes, Tristan.
I have actually seen a lot of my teachers implement elements of BlueStacks into my classes already. A lot of my teachers have started standards-based grading instead of simply just memorization of content. And I think one of the beauties of the system is how there's a lot of space for improvement, and it kind of eases the burden off of students to feel that they have to get everything perfect on the first try. They know that there are many opportunities for retakes and to further their understanding of a certain topic that really drive like true learning of the content. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really good addition for all of our curriculum at school. Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate your blue and gold outfit. And what it reminds me of, when I went to Jeff, whenever the football team or the basketball team had a home game, they would, we're the same era here, as best we know. They would wear, usually it's the nicest thing they had, and it was a sweater with a dress shirt and a tie. And that's what you remind me of, so really cool. And I love that you occasionally will turn to Miss Rubin, and she's like giggling, and like, she's not going to help you.
No,
No, but
no, I need it, but yeah.
And it's good to have Dr. Robinson here, and a longtime Jefferson teacher. And so I really appreciate the presentation. You seem like you've been at Jeff for a while, and this is just your first year. You know, you are in it. And we know how it's been lately. You were thrown in, and I think you've just embraced the community, the school. I think our students and our teachers and staff are in good hands with you. And they take good care. Let's see. The Wellness Center, is that the room, you're trying to transform the room next to the library? Is that what that?
No,
Like a-
we need to identify where it's going to go. I think it's going to go inside the counseling center,
Okay.
where it can be monitored and supervised, so there can be a staff member present. We're trying to identify where that will be in the counseling building. But yes, we did have a room there. There's been several iterations of it.
Yeah, okay.
But that one's hard because there wasn't anyone kind of supervising it.
Then you said that you have one counselor dedicated to students learning English. So how many students is on that counselor's?
About 280-ish. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How's that going?
It's been an adjustment. I think it is a lot. I think one of the challenges that the individual is facing is our dually identified students, so students who are receiving support for special needs and English support. And so those students are challenging. There's a lot of meetings and there's a lot of extra support and work that goes into supporting students. So it's a lot. I think that we'll certainly reevaluate and see how it's going, and if it's the best course of action this year. But this is our first year doing it. So, and we got started a little bit after school started. So, but I think when it comes time for our monitoring group, the group that meets, and I think it simplifies things in that situation. I know it was hard for some students to lose the counselor that they had, because that person lost the people that they had, and they went to a different counselor, so that was disruptive. But it felt like this was streamlined things and made a single point of contact. So there was one message coming out of student services and around student support and what classes and knowing what the pathway was for students.
To have
And
that
families too. Yeah.
Board's here to support, so reach out to us. Reach out.
Thanks.
So some people in positions like this with a microphone are known to ask questions that embarrass the speaker. I ask questions that embarrass me. Two of them, first is, what is Mission Fusion? And the second is, can I get down?
Yes. Mission Fusion is a fusion of dance and
Spoken word.
kind of poetry and it's a
Multimedia.
theatrical, multimedia. It's a very theatrical performance. It's a dance company. And it usually, there's a theme to the show. This year's theme is myth. I have not seen it. I've seen pieces, but I haven't seen the whole thing. I'm going Thursday night. So you're welcome to come Thursday
This
night. I can
weekend.
get you a ticket. Yeah. So it happens once a year. It's a single showcase. We do a performance for middle school students. So our feeder middle schools bring buses. They did last Thursday, and they came and watched it at school. Thursday, they came and watched it at school, and then we have a preview show, and then we have 3 showings, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it's open to any student at Jefferson who wants to participate. Most of the rehearsals happen after school. So in the evening, we do have a CTE program that's dance, CTE dance program. And so some of the students are in that program, but not all. So some students just love dance. And I've been told that some students come to Jefferson just for Mission Fusion, that it struck them as middle school kids and they just thought it was beautiful and loved it. And it's a really beautiful, weaving of multimedia and dance and performance.
My daughter was in Mission Fusion junior and senior year. And the performance is about 2 hours long. I think were we told that it's actually 2.5 hours this year?
I think it's 2:15 maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's worth it, though.
It's worth it. It's
Over 2 hours well spent.
And it's written and choreographed by the students.
That's impressive.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, and you may get down.
Thank you, Mr. Harden. Really great presentation. Most of my questions have thankfully been answered, but I do want to ask, when you look at the A through G increase, can you point to any particular impact that, anything that you're doing currently that's helped contribute towards that? Is it the 4x4 schedule? Is it the flex time? Is it a combination of all these things? I mean, I know 4x4 is still relatively new, but I would imagine there's been some positive impact.
Yes, I would think the 4x4 has had probably the largest single impact. Just the ability for students to retake classes during the school day. And, not only graduate from high school, which we have a great graduation rate. It's good. It could be better, but it also provides that time for them to be able to retake a class that they didn't pass or that they got a D in for grade improvement. And it just widens if a student has stumbled at any point in a traditional school, it's hard to find the opportunity to make it up. So students have a lot of opportunities to find their way on a block.
Looking forward to seeing how the data grows over time as this continues. It reminds me actually of years ago when we were at the CSBA conference in San Diego and sitting in a presentation about the A through G increase at this one district, and the thing that they did differently was that they had gone to a 4x4 block schedule for all their schools, and it was a decent-sized district. And over a 10-year period, they actually saw a significant increase overall, and they also saw all of the other metrics grow as well, but the gaps persisted. But they all increased nevertheless, just like you've shown with your data here. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this continues to improve, and who knows, maybe this is something we should be looking out across the board, but I'm grateful to the work that you and your staff are doing. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, we will move on. Okay, now we can go on to item 14A2, English Language Development Update. Ms. Baca?
Good evening.
Intro?
So after reviewing many performance indicators of all of our student groups from many, many years, it has been clear that our students learning English need special support and attention. It has been our goal that these students feel welcome in our district and that their linguistic, academic, and social needs are met. So tonight, I'd like to welcome Dr. Lori Robinson and our SLE TOSAs, who will be sharing the positive strides of our English language development program for JUHSD. Dr. Robinson.
Hi, good evening, Board of Trustees, President Lee, everyone watching at home. I'm excited to be presenting. I have to say, I got a protocol of 15 slides, and I have gone over that. I do want to acknowledge, I'm very, very excited, especially because this is the first time I'm presenting to two of our newer trustees to talk about our program. And, there are a lot of positive things, but that is a tall order to start out with. Just like in Mr. Harrigan's presentation, there's also plenty of room for growth. I am joined not in the presentation today by my team, some members of my team, but they're here for my support and also to help answer questions. This is Lisa Rubin. She is the Student Learning English TOSA for Jefferson High School, and this year she's actually moved into a role at the district office that helps to support the program in our Pacifica schools and at Thornton. They're much, much smaller. They don't have official newcomer population, but there are students that are classified as long-term English learners in those sites, and she helps to progress monitor for them, and so I'll be speaking a little bit more to what that is. And Lori Collins, who will oversees that at Westmore High School. So, and I'm Lori Robinson. Yeah, I think that was said. So as we look tonight, I'm going to be presenting a lot of numbers, data, both population trends as well as some of our indicators and goals for our programs and data related to that. Big areas of focus for us over definitely the last couple of years have been our intake process for incoming students and as well as progress monitoring for our current students. And then we'll finish up tonight by also sharing some goals that we have based on that information. So the trends. I'm going to tell you right now, fun thing about updating these presentations is I could have basically kept these numbers the same from the last time I did this presentation. They're almost identical. We stay very, very steady in terms of both our number of students learning English identified by the state of California as English learners, as well as our RFEP, which is reclassified English proficient. Those are students that have actually gone through the process over the years, taken LPAC, and met other criteria to be classified now as English proficient. Students that initially come in and test as English proficient, and then our students who are English only. Those numbers are very steady, no matter how many shifts there are in population and enrollment through the rest of the district. But the thing that has changed and shifts a bit is who exactly is coming in. And so this is kind of an interesting trend for me. I'm just looking at this for fall semester. So this is just capturing students up until like December 23rd. And already we're at a 20% increase from fall of last year. So like that steady kind of incline that we have for our students learning English coming in. Our greatest area that we see increases in is our ELD 1s, which is our newcomers. That's at the students that are coming in at like the lowest like familiarity and experience with English, which can be challenging for us because generally those students, like our very newcomer students, have the most restrictive schedules. Like they essentially are taking ELD and ELA 1, like a newcomer English basics sort of course, math, PE, and usually some art, visual and performing arts classes. And they have to wait to kind of start to take those science classes, history courses, things like that. But a big surprise this year was, it's only gone from 8 to 17, but that's a 113% increase. We've had a lot more students coming in in our ELD 3, which meaning they're coming in with a little bit more of expanded experience with English proficiency. And I think my hypothesis is that we can kind of explain it through where students are coming in. And this has been one of the most interesting things for me to watch. So this actually isn't representative of all of the incoming students from the last semester, but it's any student, like, I didn't count the singletons. So this is anybody that had 2 students coming from that country. Probably the biggest surprise was Kyrgyzstan. That is a new one for us. And they went to Westmore, yes. And we're a big fan of their family. Lovely, lovely family and 2 siblings. But we have never had students from Kyrgyzstan before, and that is how I learned that they also speak Russian there. And I had no idea. And their dad, of the students in question, helped to do a lot of interpretation for that, because we don't have a lot of Russian speakers on hand in our district. Believe it or not, Mexico, having 2 students from Mexico is actually not that common anymore. We see a lot more students from other Central American countries, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras. Of course, we always have a big contingent from the Philippines. There was a recent election in Peru, and it has caused some major unrest in terms of residents there. So that's actually a big increase for us to have 6 families from Peru there. Probably no surprise if you've been, paying attention to the news that we, have some students from the Ukraine. Some of them have gone to Westmore, and then we have a couple that have gone to Oceana as well. And so we have different languages there, Ukrainian as well as Russian, too, from those students. But it is interesting to see when you hear about things in the news, how much that impacts, even us in Daly City and Pacifica, when we see families coming in. So that's kind of where we're at with this. Normally at this time, I'd be now taking you into giving you an update. And one of our big focus areas in LCAP is our college and career indicator. What I love about that indicator in terms of the dashboard data that we get to focus on our program for students learning English is that it has multiple indications. Like, it helps us track how many students learning English have access to AP courses, to complete a career technical education pathway, to complete the seal of biliteracy, dual enrollment courses, A through G, a big topic of this evening, things like that. So I really appreciate that, but they've suspended that metric for this year, so we didn't get that data. But we are back to looking at this fun little graph right here. I'm so disappointed Kalima's not here, because I know this would just make her so frustrated. But it is.
Oh, now we know. Now the truth comes out.
Well, I was watching the dashboard presentation that Ms. Vaca gave a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, I thought this was supposed to make it easier. And I was like, yeah, she's not going to like this. I was like working on this presentation and aware that this was going to happen. So what's interesting about this too is the last time I presented to the board about the English language progress indicator, it was March 10th of 2020. And now you can probably understand why I remember the exact date, because literally everything shut down that Friday.
Yeah.
And so I was updating about that, and that's the last time they actually gave an indicator for this, because this indicator is built on students' comparative LPAC test, that is the English language proficiency assessments for California. There we go. Gosh, we use acronyms so much that sometimes I don't even remember what they all stand for, but it's the yearly assessment that our students learning English take to indicate their progress in their goal towards increasing their proficiency in English. So they need to take it twice because they look at their progress from one test to the other. Now, as annoying as this looks, because it's like, well, you got 3 proficiency levels and then LPAC levels and then progress indicators, this is actually a good thing for us that they have split level 2 and level 3 into a high and a low. Because when you think about when you're increasing your language proficiency, experts believe it takes about 5 to 7 years to become proficient in a secondary language. And so your progress over the years is going to feel slow. It's going to feel, incremental. And so having something to be able to present to students and other colleagues that say, no, you have progressed. You went from being a 1 to a 2 low, or a 2 low to a 2 high, instead of saying, nope, you're just stuck in 2. I think is helpful to, gauge student progress, to help understand everything else. But it does, much to Kalima's chagrin, make things a little bit more complicated. But this is where we are as a district overall in terms of these English language progress indicators. We have about, in 2019, it almost looks very, very similar from 2019 to now when we had this, and you figure, wow, we've just been through so much so in those few years that it's kind of incredible that it ended up looking so similar. But we're hovering just under 50, like in the low 40% of students who are making progress, so they're seeing an increase. We have another large contingent of students, a little bit more than a third, that are just keeping steady. Partially what we could account for this is that we get a lot of students, as you saw in that other slide, that enter in as ELD1, and that will often be like, very much ELD1. Like the lowest possible score on the initial placement test is a 150. We have a lot of students that come in at 150. And so they might, in this particular graph, be in that 37.4% of just hovering in the 1% consistently. They're still doing that. What we overall want to see shrink into nothing is that 19.5% of students that are actually decreasing a level. When we have students here, we should definitely have programs that are helping students progress or in their language acquisition. So that's the overall goal that we have, and so that is kind of where we're at. One of the things I do want to point out, though, is this is broken out by school site. Unfortunately, I don't have Thornton or Terra Nova High School because they, remember, it's students that have taken a test twice. And so they did not have more than 11. Oceana just only had exactly 11. That's why they're being reported out on. And then you can see Jefferson's numbers. They had 187 and 124. They have larger programs there for students learning English. But you can see that Westmore had a lot more success than Oceana or Jefferson High School. Part of what I have a hypothesis of going on is the site testing environment. So typically, how the test is given is at Jefferson and Westmore, they're actually starting to give it as of, next week already. And so it is divided up. It's a test that has 4 domains: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And we split it up for most students to take it day by day in their class. So they'll take listening on Monday, reading on Tuesday, and do it in a piecemeal fashion like that. At a site like Oceana, where there are only, we already actually finished most of our testing at Oceana this year because there's only 19 students. We have 3 left to get to, and we just started this week. So because of that, we test them all in one day. And it occurred to me that then I looked at Jefferson and I went, because of the 4x4, currently there are less students that just where it fell in their schedule that is taking their designated EL class. So last year we actually set up a similar testing environment for them as well. They had more students that were just being sent to the library and taking all 4 domains, reading, writing, listening, speaking, in one day. And my current hypothesis is that that's not a great way to be taking that test. That being able to have each one of those, I know that sounds obvious. It's kind of embarrassing. Hindsight's 2020, okay? Yeah, and there's been some stuff over the last couple of years, okay? We're working on it, but yeah, it's one of those things where it was as plain as the nose on our face, but it took something like this to make us realize,
That explains
maybe
your
that's
comment on the
not,
slide.
yeah,
Okay.
like the best. And there is a lot of, less students that were in that testing situation at Westmore. Not that I'm saying that also, Westmore's doing an excellent job with their program and everything else like that, but so is Jeff, and so to try and really drill down as to what is going on, that is causing those numbers and how we might be able to address that in the future. So, that kind of takes the programmatic side, the language acquisition side. The other side of our program for students learning English is always like the climate aspect, and particularly because, as you saw with the breakdown of countries, we have students that are coming from situations that aren't great. In a lot of cases, perhaps even highly traumatic situations. And so it's been an area of focus for us for a while now to have an intake process that's more warm, is one of the words that I would use for it, that we use a lot when we discuss it, that it's an easier process for our families, that we're addressing needs that our students are coming in with more quickly and better as a system overall. When I presented this presentation last year, here were some of my goals. It was to continue to refine that process, especially at the district level, to improve that communication and the link between what the district office was doing when students first come in and register, because that's the first step here in our district. They all register through the district office, and then they're assigned to the school site. And so how can we make sure that transition is as smooth as possible? conducting needs assessments so that we know, right away when students and families get here, if there is something going on that they need, and we can put them in touch with that as soon as possible. And to really strengthen the partnership between the social worker and the family liaison. So as a reminder, this is kind of how the process works. When students come in, they register online or with assistance from our special project assistants. So that is Patty Del Rio, Gabrielle DeGandan, and Tino Imanowski at the district office. They are all there to help families register and work through the process. If they flag on the home language survey, which is something they fill out as part of registration, and if one of the, it's 4 questions, and if one of them indicate that it is not English, they're flagged for the LPAC initial test, and then they're going to work with the special project assistants, both on completing that test and completing an intake interview that ranges from, like getting a little school background on them to fun questions too, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you like to do outside of school? Just some questions that sometimes surface some pretty serious things, but also can be just, the getting to know you kind of questions that can then be shared with teachers so that the student already has kind of like a point of contact when they come in. That information is shared with VPs, counselors. It's uploaded to Elevation, which is kind of like our electronic like student file. For each one of our students learning English that has like just a bunch of test information, grades, other kinds of documents. It's also how we do our progress monitoring, which I'll speak about in a minute. And then the social worker, the students learning English, teachers on special assignments, the counselor that's now dedicated to our students learning English, our family liaison, they all kind of come together and continue that work of progress monitoring the students as a part of intake. This is a lot easier to do with a fully staffed team. Like, this is one of the things that I'm coming to you that I'm the most proud of that we've really improved, and yet it can't escape my attention that also like, we've actually had family liaisons hired since the beginning of the year. I couldn't tell you that at this time last year. Same with our bilingual paras. The Students Learning English counselor is new. Our DO team, Gabby is really new to that. She's been such a great addition. Also, so we have Ariana Tapia at Jefferson High School. Diana Villalobos, better known as Tia Diana, in my house. That is because the Villalobos here is the same as the Villalobos here. Jose Sr. Has given great gifts to Jefferson Union High School District. What else I just really find cool as a point of interest is that both Jose Villalobos and Gabriela Moraga, who are now the Students Learning English counselors at Westmore and Jefferson, both started out as the family liaisons at Westmore and Jefferson, and partially through the encouragement of one Corrine Baca, they both, were encouraged to become counselors. So hopefully we can do the same with this next set and start the new generation. We get great feedback from Berto Rodriguez and Don Francis Paredes as the bilingual paras. It took such a long time to get them. We're actually posting for additional bilingual paraprofessionals at each school site, but much like the first go-round, the second go-round has unfortunately not yielded a lot of takers so far, a lot of applicants. So we're working on it, but slow progress, and it has been fairly positive. So whenever we're working on like improving a process, I always believe that the district office should go first in really looking at what's going on. And so we have this metric as a part of the LCAP to really increase the warmth in that intake process. And so we've done a few things, and we've also attached a survey to that. So I'll tell you some of the things we've done and share some of the survey data that we have so far. I mentioned that the students now go through an interview. That's been something that's been really great in getting the attention of the social worker and site staff to learn a bit more about the students before they meet them. Another really popular thing that we've done is the backpacks. Now with any student comes in and goes through it, at the end of the process, we have them pick a backpack. And just as a fun point, it is so interesting seeing the colors that students pick. and the in-depth way that they like hover over the drawer that the backpacks are in, and they act like it's the most important decision of their lives, and there's a whole thing to the colors. One time when I was reordering them, I actually only reorder a pack that has like these colors of it once, and so I had to order the pack of all of these, and man, pink is just not a popular color, just across the board. I don't exactly know why. Neither is this teal one up here, and people don't like it. Just an interesting factoid for you. But our hope moving forward is that the idea is that they bring the backpack to the school site, and then through proposals that the TOSAs will be completing with their school site councils, that we can get like a stack of hoodies that have like Jeff mascot and other things on them, grizzly merch kind of stuff, and then Ram stuff as well. Because one of our social workers pointed out, a lot of these kids are coming from tropical climates, and then they come here in August, and they're like, what? What's happening? And a hoodie might be really helpful, in Daly City, really at any time of year. So we're hoping to continue with that. Another way to make that connection between the school site and the district office and make it feel like it's a seamless process is to be like, take this to the school site and they'll put a hoodie in the backpack as well, that kind of a handoff process. So to see how we're doing with everything, my team now, Gabby, Patty, and Tino will send out a survey a few days after the student has completely completed the registration process and has been pushed to their school site and been given a schedule. It's like any other survey. We are still working also at the completion rate, though we've had something, like 80 some students, we do only have about 13 respondents to this. Although we have the survey, don't ask me to explain how I did it. I had to look up a YouTube video, but I discovered this way that I have one Google Form survey, and then I have a bunch of different created links for various languages. And so when we send the family a link for their language, they're filling out the same survey, but they can fill it out both using their language, and it's in their language that they indicated they're most comfortable communicating in. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I can't remember how I did it, but I'd be able to figure it out again. So I really appreciate that this is one of the first things that I ask them is, what language are you feeling most comfortable communicating in? And you see some of the indications there. That one, the Russia, is Russian. That's how the parent filled it out, because he had to put other, because I have a bunch of our common languages in there, but I hadn't accounted for Russian at the time. But every single one of the families that filled this out, when I said, okay, so that's the language you're comfortable in, did you receive communications that you felt comfortable with in this? And 100% of respondents did say yes. So that's really great. And as you can see, most of the students, respondents, are still going to our main schools with the newcomer programs, Jefferson and Westmore. So of that, we have 5 big areas that we're working on in the questions. So I asked them, how do you feel about the time that the staff spent with you on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being, the most happy, 1 being the least happy, the ability of staff to answer your questions, the communication from staff in between steps of the intake process, how comfortable our staff made you feel throughout this process, and then the intake process as it came to your school site. So this is kind of a graph of the respondents. I want to point out that blue bar, one family respondent gave us a 3 all the way across, and they did luckily leave a comment explaining what their frustrations or unhappiness was about, and they believe that particularly we need to have like a more site-specific orientation for students that speaks directly to how they it boiled down to how you are as a student, right? How do you turn in homework, where do you get the sense of expectations? Things that I realized, and this is something that I'm working on a bit, I'm in very infancy of conversations with our students learning English counselors, but there's a big difference between even our incoming immigrant students that are able to join us at the beginning of the year, because a lot of them will come over summer and be able to start, and those that trickle in throughout the school year. We do a lot more orientation for those students in the beginning than we do for the students throughout. So it's a good piece of feedback, but that accounts for the 3 across the board. What I find the most interesting about this one is that 2 different respondents, gave us a 4, too, which is the only time otherwise that we get like that lower score, besides the one parent that gave us 3, in the areas of communication in between steps. And though they didn't further elaborate, there weren't comments for this one, I still think that that's really good feedback for me and our team. And then this, I just love, this was there's a lot of comments on the feedback form, but here we have some, and they were able to express themselves in their language. So we have Spanish. We have what at first might appear to be Spanish, but no, it is Portuguese. And then we have Russian and Chinese. Google Translate tells me that this means no problem, everything was fine. And that this, I don't know if it's Google Translate's fault or if the parent misinterpreted the question, but apparently this just means yes.
Yeah.
And it
Yes.
was just in the feedback of everything there. So just neat. It's always fun for me to receive these comments and, figure out what feedback they're giving us. And so that really helps with our incoming students, but we also have to monitor the progress of students who are currently there. So we started this process last year where, oh, look at that, Lori Collins and Lisa Rubin, who give out a progress monitoring form through our Elevation website. This is that kind of electronic student folder that I was talking about before, where teachers not only give an indication of like how students are doing in the various areas like listening, reading, writing, the things that LPAC measures for them on, but what interventions might be really helpful for students that are struggling, because our teachers often have insights that we aren't able to get from test scores that we give as a part of progress monitoring. And so they give these out a few times a year, including to students that have been recently reclassified as English proficient. And we started this last year, but we were kind of like, okay, now we have all this information. What do we do with it? And how do we make sure that we're actually using that information and making sure the kids are getting good interventions? And so that's really been the focus of this year. And because of that, here's just a sampling of some things that are now offered based on the feedback from the monitoring forms. So there's one-on-one wellness supports. There's the newcomer groups. You heard, I was very validated when I heard Mr. Harrigan speaking about a few of these things happening too. And the progress monitoring group that Ms. Rubin and Ms. Collins both run at their school site that reviews these monitoring forms as well as tests. There's newcomer groups, student mentoring through either peer assistance or the link crew at Jefferson High School, tutoring clubs, check-ins with both the new Students Learning English counselors as well as the TOSAs, and very rarely, but occasionally, schedule adjustments as we see fit based on those progress monitoring things. So really just proud that, it's been from last year really getting the monitoring forms off the ground that we're already at this point where we're starting to see an increase in our focus and Tier 2 interventions that we're able to offer these students. But that does also bring us to our goals and next steps because, really I want to just celebrate that. I think there's a little bit too that like coming out of COVID and just feeling like we almost had to restart everything from ground zero, that from just last year to this year, in addition to being full staff, just really feeling like we've just made so much progress. I mean, it was something I know Lori and I spoke about this afternoon, just that like the site teams and how well they're working together. Like I just know that every day that passes, like our students are getting more of what they need, and that's just a really great feeling. So the goal is to now start having it reflect on some of those metrics and indicator, right? I want to see that ELPI, the English Language Progress Indicator, go up this year. I want to see more students that are increasing the level. I want the states to regain that college and career indicator because that gives me some of my best data that we can really track about how we're really, what it's coming down to is how we're meaningfully, and the key word there being meaningfully, integrating students both academically and in student activities that are, our students learning English, because as you heard Mr. Harrigan mention, like there is a history of them being a little bit more segregated in some of these sheltered classes, and really seeing their integration into some of these programs. And the college and career indicator really helps us to track that. Over on the kind of climate side of the house, Based on that parent survey, I really want to take a look with my team about improving the communication about the intake process in between those steps and take a look at how we can work on that. In addition, though, I would really like to take the survey that we've been doing at the district office and figure out a way to replicate it at the school sites to get similar feedback about how things are going there. And to continue to expand those tier 2 interventions based on the progress monitoring, because I think we've only just begun and there's potential for a lot more growth there. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Any questions?
33 minutes.
It's
It was
okay.
a little long.
That's good.
I tried.
It's all good.
That was pretty
Okay.
good, yeah.
Questions and comments from the board?
It's a lot. I
It
mean,
is a lot. I know. I know. I'm just really excited too because you're both new. I've never gotten to present in front of either of you, and so I was like, oh, I want them to know all the great things about our program, but also not overwhelm them. And maybe I overshot just a little bit.
No, not at all. I mean, I think the task at hand is overwhelming in itself. So, I mean, this is pretty awesome. It takes a lot. I mean, it's a lot of info too. I mean, but you need it. You need all the data you can.
Is there anything that you're doing now that you didn't do 3 years ago when you presented this back on March 10th, 2020 before the world
Yeah.
shut down?
The intake process and the progress monitoring is both completely new.
Okay.
Those were like dreams of things that I thought we could do. I mean, even just, I know it sounds cheesy, but I love the backpacks. It's just this nice thing
It
that like
means
makes
so much.
Yeah, the
it's
kids
huge.
really smile and like you can kind of sense that. And also there's nothing like distinct about the backpacks that make them like, because we were also worried about like the stigma, right? Of things like that. Like you don't want to show up and like be like,
With
I'm
that
carrying in the
backpack,
free
yeah.
backpack, or God forbid we put like the district logo on it or something. Like everybody'd be like, ugh. I'm like, no offense. I mean,
No offense. None taken.
the genie logo with the sun. I mean, it's very attractive, but I don't know how much like kids are, like really wanting to sport it on their clothes or, a backpacker thing. So nothing that really marks or brands them as like, this was the free backpack. It's a decent looking backpack and it's got some just basic school supplies in it, but enough to just like not be empty-handed, walking in. And not even that all of them are. Some of them will even say to us like, well, I already have a backpack, but can I take it for my sister? And we're like, yeah, grab it, So it's just that feels really good. You can just sense that it just feels more friendly, the interactions. It's really a difficult thing when students first come in and gosh, I can't even imagine being in a completely different country, not necessarily knowing the language at all, and then having to be like, hi, welcome, come into this small room with this person you've never met before and take a test in this language that you are super unfamiliar with. How intimidating that is, and how we've just really been working, like, what are the different ways where we don't lead with that, first off, and that we can not just, like, say, hey, this is okay and this is fine, but actually, like, demonstrate and behave in ways that are actually, like, more warm and welcoming. And as simple as it seems, like even just the backpacks have really, I think,
Big
made
deal.
a huge stride with that.
May I make one point? At the end, Lori was referring to the fact that won't it be great when the data catches up to what's actually happening? And so that happens a lot, right? I mean, especially in high school versus elementary or middle school, these high stakes tests don't feel so high stakes to them. And so sometimes it's kind of, a lagging indicator of what's actually happening. And there really is great work happening. So I just want to say that there's great stuff happening. And I know that the improvements are happening. And so that the changing of the testing environment, like, we did kind of make a face, but no, I mean, you figured out like, oh, let's do this differently. And then maybe the test will show the great outcomes that are happening. So anyway, there's lots of good work going on.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that, having a warmer intake process is part of the LCAP, because it matters. It really does. And when you're talking about the backpacks, I mean, it reminds me, when I was 19, I enrolled 3 of my cousins from the Philippines. I enrolled them at Jeff when I was 19. Because my mom did not feel proficient in English to enroll them. So I enrolled 3 cousins at Jeff, and then 2 little cousins at TRP, and I mean, and they all looked at me like, who's this kid bringing these kids here? And so I really appreciate that we are helping these families, and some of them coming here in very traumatic fashion, and that they're coming throughout the year. And I'm glad that you identified that, we've got to keep this going for every student, no matter what level they're coming in, at what time of year. That must be really, really hard. And because I remember I didn't enroll them at the beginning of the school year. It was like they had missed a quarter already. And they were that much more far behind. And I just, remember one of my little cousins, one of her spelling words was campfire. And she asked me, what is that? And then when I tried to describe to her how fun it is to have a campfire, she just looked at me, because then I realized where she came from. Her house had dirt floors. This is not fun, This she can't relate to it. And so what you're doing here, I love all the slides. It provides so much information, and especially the birth countries. That's very interesting to me. Just who's coming to our district, and how is we're a diverse district already, but, how diverse. It's gotten even more. So, but I really appreciate what Ms. Collins and Ms. Rubin and you have been doing, and just, gosh, getting fully staffed. What a dream.
Difference. And also to your point too, the one thing that we have to keep in mind about the students that are incoming too is how much is out of their control.
Yeah.
And just even as students, but then even their families and parents too. Like when we're looking at the birth countries, like it always strikes me that I know for sure, and I'm only looking at Ms. Baca because I know she knows even more about this, but I know for sure Honduras. Is it Guatemala too that goes, like their school year starts in like April and ends in December? It goes more of like the calendar year than our school year, going like halfway in between years. And so often when they come to us, like in December, in January, they are coming at the end of their last school year, and they know that they're going into a system that is different, but it's like they can't sort of help it. They finished out their school year coming with those transcripts, and then to be told, oh, sorry, you're already a semester behind, and just being conscious of that too. So really trying to work, Gabby, one of our new special project assistants, has been really helping Jean Enriquez, who previously was doing transcript evaluation, and really trying to streamline that process too, along with, I know you both helped me at the site with that, and reviewing those so that at least students are also getting as many credits as they can coming in the door, so they're not feeling as frustrated.
On that, are there certain times of year where we do see spikes in newcomer students, and then other times where it's just a trickle here and there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the beginning of the year, December, January, like even now-ish, Yeah, unfortunately, there's another weird time where like we literally, Doreen's nodding because she gets blamed even though she really should, because she has to send the emails. Even tonight, my husband, who is Jose Villalobos, one of the counselors at Jefferson, looked at me and was like, man, Doreen, a 12th grader that's coming into Jefferson? And I'm like, oh yes, it's Doreen's fault that this is happening, it was all of her master plan. But, it's hard. There are some predictable times, but then weirdly, like we'll get a bunch of kids in May and people will be like, why are you sending me a kid in May? And it's like, because that's when they came and finished registration and they have education rights and they've got to be here, and if they can at least come and maybe meet some folks, get a few familiar faces, it'll make whenever they do get to start full-time that much easier. Summer school, totally.
Okay. The other thing I just want to add is that I'm really grateful to see you actually incorporate the feedback from the surveys, even though the survey data is, relatively light in terms of the number of respondents.
Yeah.
But the fact that even if just on one comment alone, you're already addressing it as something that you want to be able to improve upon. So I appreciate that attention to detail. I also have to point out that Ms. Collins is wearing green for Westmore tonight. So.
And you can't really like fully rep Jeff anymore. Yeah, the pink backpack. There you are. You're in their corner. I appreciate that, Ms. Rubin.
Very good. If any other questions or comments for Dr. Robinson?
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
They're really helpful, very informative. All right, moving on. Item 14B1, Board Policy Update BP 4030, Non-Discrimination in Employment. Ms. Lujan.
Good evening, everyone. Before you for discussion this evening is an update to Board Policy 4030. It is a very small update in a government code that changed military and veteran to veteran or military so that way both classes are covered and not considered one individual. And I welcome any questions you may have about that change.
Any questions or comments? Great. Thank you. I guess we'll see that in consent at the next meeting. Great. Okay. Item 15A1, Delegate Assembly Ballot, Subregion 5B, San Mateo County. Ms. Presta.
So each year you receive the delegate assembly ballot. I believe that you vote for no more than 3 candidates to serve for CSBA. It looks like one of the candidates is our own Kalima Salahuddin. And another one is Greg Land. I don't know Heather Hopkins, but I will put it back to you folks. You may know Heather Hopkins.
I've met her a couple of times, and I think,
Have any discussion?
any questions or comments regarding this? This is an action item, so if you're all good with this, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
To vote for all 3.
To vote for all 3.
I don't know about that Greg Land guy. He's going to watch this.
We'll just snip this piece and send it to him.
Move to approve the delegate assembly ballot, subregion 5B, to vote for all 3 candidates.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Motion passes. Item 15B1, Public Hearing and Action, Approval of Physical Education Block Schedule Waiver Application. Ms. Baca.
Good evening, everyone. So this is fun. California Ed Code requires 400 minutes of physical education instruction every 10 days. I don't know if you knew that. But Jefferson High School's 4x4 schedule does not allow students to meet that requirement, as students are not enrolled in PE the whole entire school year. So it means that some of them are enrolled just in one semester, and then the other semester they're not enrolled in a PE class. So because of that, the State Board of Education allowed for a flexibility by creating a waiver for block schedules. And this was adopted way back in 1984. So the intent of this policy is to ensure that students engage in consistent physical activity as required by statute, despite the fact that their school schedule does not allow for that activity in an instructional setting. So the Jefferson High School's PE team, with their administrators, create a process for which students will log their physical activities during the time when they are not enrolled in PE. Students who do not complete these logs will be enrolled in PE during their flex time and do their physical activity. So this process is very similar to many high schools that have the 4x4 schedule, including the one that Mr. Harrigan came from. And so before I submit this waiver to the State Board of Education, it is required that we as a district hold a public hearing and that the board approves this waiver. So it's my recommendation that we approve this PE waiver for Jefferson High School.
Any questions or comments from the board first before I open the public hearing?
I have a question. I just couldn't work out the math. So how much PE are they currently doing while supervised? Is that the right way to say it?
So they are in 80 minutes of PE every week. And so that actually, every day during the semester. So the requirement is that they have to be between 80 to 90 minutes during like that semester. So this will meet that requirement.
Thank you.
Right. I will open up the public hearing. Any members of the public wish to comment? All right, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the waiver?
Motion to approve a physical education block schedule waiver application for Jefferson High School.
A second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you very much. Item 15C1, application for variable term waiver, Pedro Ramos. Ms. Lujan?
Good evening, everyone. Before you is an application for a variable term waiver for Pedro Ramos. He is currently a substitute for our district. He is interested in taking on a teaching position in adult school, part-time. And he currently holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy and classical languages. He also holds the teaching English to speakers of other languages certificate. He has experience working with English learners and is really excited about joining the adult school staff in this capacity.
Great. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the variable term waiver.
Motion to approve variable term waiver for Pedro Ramos.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. 15D1, Resolution 2022-2023/13, directing preparation of the 23-24 annual report of the JUHSD Maintenance Assessment District.
President Lee. Back in 1991, the Jefferson Union High School District Maintenance Assessment District was formed, and this was to provide funding for maintenance and service of public facilities and improvements at the locations around our school district. We go through 3 steps each year to maintain this maintenance assessment district, and if we don't do that, then we lose this funding. It's about $350,000 per year for improvements of our facilities. This time of year, we direct the work of our consultant, SCI, and then in May, you will receive their draft report. You will approve their draft report and announce a public hearing. The public hearing then happens in June, at which time you direct the assessment of the levy. The levy is between $7.50 to $10 per single-family dwelling, is the way that they phrase it, single-family dwelling. So what's before you today is a resolution to direct SCI Consulting Group to perform this work. I will take any questions.
Questions or comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve it. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Great, thank you. All right, item 16, consideration of future agenda items. Anything from the board? Nope, not this time. All right. And 17, do we have a motion to adjourn? This one really should go quickly.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned at 8:51 PM.